Moments with the final press conference for the informal meeting of the EU leaders which took place earlier.
Good afternoon. Let's now move to the press conference following the informal meeting of the European Council. I will not present our speakers, and I will immediately give the floor to President Costa.
Good afternoon. Take two. Thank you, President Christodoulidis, dear Nikos, for hosting this informal European Council yesterday in Ayanapa, and today in Lefkosia. Okay? Okay, perfect. Much better. Okay. I need to come more often. Today, Europe is facing a challenging security environment, one that requires Europe to have a 360-degree vision for sustainable peace and security, and to act upon it, be it in Ukraine or in the Middle East. Our meeting in Cyprus, in the current context, carries an important symbolism. It demonstrates the European Union's firm and unequivocal support to member states most affected by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. For Cyprus, this situation is not an abstract issue. That is why it is so important to be here today, by your side, dear Nikos, and to send a clear message of European unity and solidarity. Cyprus is a vital anchor of cooperation and European engagement in the region. The security situation in the Middle East and the economic consequences it has on Europe and on European citizens were the main themes of our discussions. The recent ceasefires between the United States and Iran, Israel and Lebanon are welcome developments. Now all parties must engage in good faith to achieve a peace. The European Union is not part of the conflict, but we will be part of the solution. As we support diplomatic efforts towards reaching a negotiated solution to this conflict, our principles are clear. Real peace can only be achieved by defending international law in a consistent and principled way. Our priorities are equally clear. First, to restore freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Second, to work towards a stable and lasting ceasefire that could pave the way to sustainable peace in the region. Third, and finally, there cannot be a stable Middle East with a nuclear-armed Iran, and the European Union will continue to contribute to this objective as it has in the past. We met with leaders of Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and the Gulf Cooperation Council. Our partners know they can count on us. We have been in intense contact with them. A few days after the start of the conflict in the Middle East, President von der Leyen and myself organized a video conference with all the leaders from the region to exchange on the situation and offer the support of the European Union. And just last week, I was in the Gulf to meet leaders from Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates and Qatar on the back of the High Representative's own visit. In parallel, under the leadership of France, together with the United Kingdom, a coalition of more than 50 countries is preparing a multilateral defensive mission to restore freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz when the necessary security conditions are met. During our meeting, we discussed the Union's readiness to respond to this challenging geopolitical and security environment. That includes defining more precisely how our mutual assistance clause can be used in practice. Yesterday, the High Representative updated us on ongoing work on this matter. The conflict in the Middle East is having a dire impact on the prices of fossil fuels, dragging down growth and directly affecting the lives of citizens and companies. In March, European leaders agreed on the need for measures to respond to this crisis, and the communication presented this week by President von der Leyen contains an important set of measures and recommendations. Coordination is key, and we are ready to step up our response. We will continue monitoring the situation very closely and adapt our approach accordingly. In the longer term, there is only one game in town for Europe: speeding up our energy transition and accelerating the deployment of homegrown clean energy sources. That is the only way to reduce dependencies and guarantee our energy security. This morning, we had an exchange on our next long-term budget, the so-called multi-annual financial framework. We have a collective responsibility to reach an agreement by the end of the year. Only this way can we make sure that the next MFF hits the ground running from the beginning of 2028. Matching our ambitions with the necessary resources will be key. Our debate today confirms the new own resources will have to play an important role to fund the budget. There is still work to be done. The Commission's new own resource package proposal will continue to be the basis for this further work. And there was also openness to consider other proposals, namely put forward by the European Parliament. Our discussion provided important guidance for the next step. Good luck, Nicosia. We will return to the MFF discussion in June on the basis of the first proposal with figures prepared by the Cypriot presidency. So, to conclude, this is how Europe is responding to the challenging geopolitical environment. We are supporting Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression. We are playing an active role in achieving lasting peace to the Middle East. We are protecting our citizens and companies from economic shocks. And we are preparing the ground for an ambitious long-term European Union budget. Thank you, dear Nicosia, for your hospitality and for offering us this wonderful setting for our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I now give the floor to President Christodoulides.
Dear António, dear Ursula, dear friends, allow me to begin by noting that it is a moment of deep significance to welcome to Cyprus my colleagues from the 26 member states and, of course, the leadership of the European Union institutions. This is, in fact, the first time that Cyprus is hosting an informal meeting of the EU heads of state and government, and it is a moment of pride for my country, the same sense of pride and responsibility with which we have undertaken our institutional responsibility of the Presidency of the Council of the European Union. The informal meeting began yesterday in the partially occupied Famagustan district at Agia Napa, and today we stand together in Nicosia, in a European capital, the last divided in the European continent, that serves as a mirror for Europe's greatest challenges and at the same time of its most profound successes. It is actually this experience of living conditions of occupation that fuels our deep-rooted conviction in the European project and further European integration. And this is precisely what this moment calls for: more European integration and a more strategically autonomous, independent union. And this is at the heart of our presidency and encapsulated in our motto, a more autonomous union, open to the world. And this was the common theme underpinning our discussions last night and this morning. Last night, we began with an exchange with President Zelensky and underlined our steadfast support to Ukraine. We are very pleased that we have delivered on the 19 billion loan for Ukraine, a file that the Cyprus presidency worked with urgency to implement following the December European Council. Support to Ukraine across the board is a key priority of our presidency because we stand in defense of international legality wherever it is violated, and Cyprus has a first-hand understanding of the devastating consequences of invasion and occupation. Last night, we continue our exchange with addressing the geopolitical developments following the war in Iran and the greater Middle East, and most importantly, how we, as a union, respond for de-escalation, for lasting peace, for safeguarding freedom of navigation. And in fact, developments in our region remind us that in an interconnected world, there is no such thing as a crisis that does not concern us. The disruption of maritime routes and of freedom of navigation in our region are economic shocks felt at every European household. And so, let me repeat it, I reject any narrative that disassociates Europe from these developments, because this is our neighbourhood. Dear friends, our discussion these 2 days highlighted and reinforced two core issues. First, this neighbourhood is vital for the European Union, and second, strategic autonomy in all its aspects is a necessary next step of European integration that we must give substance to. In this regard, energy features prominently in our discussions. On the one hand, in the immediate short term, how we tackle through specific measures energy prices as a result of the crisis in the region, and on the other hand, in the medium and long run, how we build up our energy union, which is a key component of our union's independence. Starting with the short-term measures on energy prices, we held a very productive discussion on the basis of the comprehensive and timely toolbox announced by the Commission, which the President of the Commission presented. And on the long run, for building up a true energy union, we work to accelerate our interconnectivity to effectively end our energy dependency. And in this context, the Cyprus presidency is working diligently on the grids package. Hand in hand with this work and serving our overall goal for enhancing our competitiveness, because we can be more independent only if we can be more competitive, this morning I signed on behalf of the Council, together with the President of the Commission, the President of the Parliament, the One Market, One Europe roadmap presented by the Commission. This roadmap is comprehensive, has concrete timelines of delivery, and constitutes a strong signal of our collective determination to truly boost European competitiveness. And the Cyprus presidency has acted with urgency and ambition on this agenda, and will continue tirelessly building consensus to advance a deeper, stronger single market. During our discussion, and in light of regional developments and the strong European solidarity in action to Cyprus, we all agree that our collective security cannot remain a dormant concept on paper. All of us agreed that when the sovereignty of one member state is threatened, the response is not a question of if, but how fast. Therefore, we cannot continue to rely, if you want, on ad hoc arrangements. We must formalise the mutual defence clause into a structured, operational mechanism and be capable of transforming political statements into predictable action by operationalising Article 42.7 through a clear manual that ensures that the Union acts as a credible guarantor of security. And we know very well, dear friends, that we cannot fund the security and prosperity of the future with the tools of the past. To give true substance to our sovereignty, we must have the financial backbone to support it. Therefore, today, as António mentioned, we focus on the financial equation of the next MFF, how to match our Union's growing ambitions with the appropriate level of resources. As Presidency, we are ready. We are ready to do the difficult work. We have led significant groundwork, bringing positions around key issues. We have already tabled a targeted revision of the negotiating box addressing key issues, and this work provides a solid basis for the next phase of our negotiations. We will further accelerate and intensify our work in the coming weeks with the aim of presenting, yes, a negotiating box with figures at June European Council. Our objective is clear, and we will succeed to deliver a mature file to our Irish partners so as to move steadily towards a political agreement, as you very correctly mentioned, António, by the end of 2026. Dear friends, the informal meeting began, dear friends, when Cyprus joined the European Union in 2004. It was the most important milestone in our modern history following our independence in 1960. And today, as we host the first European Council in Cyprus, we do so with the conviction that a stronger, more autonomous, independent Europe is the only path forward. And that this union, yes, has the power, has the resilience, has the tools and the vision to make it a reality. And we have proven time and again that we transform challenge into opportunity. And exactly that is what this moment calls for. That is what we are going to deliver. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. President von der Leyen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and also from my side, my dear Nikos, thank you very much for welcoming us here in Cyprus. You said your country is the bridge into the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and indeed we could see today that this is the place where the Middle East meets the European Union. So thank you very much also for that experience, and your presidency could not have been more timely than now. António said rightly so, we discussed the impact of the crisis also on our economy, and here mainly the topic of energy. After 54 days now of conflict in the Middle East, the impact is tangible. Let me give you a figure. Since the beginning of this conflict, our bill for imported fossil fuels has increased by over 25 billion euros without a single molecule of energy in addition. 25 billion euros for 54 days, an increase of our bill. Therefore, the midterm strategy that we have been discussing in the last weeks and months is very clear. We need to reduce our over-dependency on imported fossil fuels, because these make us vulnerable to crises. And we need to boost our homegrown, affordable, clean energy sources. That is all sorts of renewables and, of course, as a baseload, nuclear. Both energy sources give us independence, they give us stability, they are produced here in the European Union, and they are cheaper. On the immediate measures that we proposed, I want to make, first of all, a general remark. The energy mix in every member state is different. And this is the reason why we have not presented something one size fits all, but a toolbox for the different situations in the different member states. First, support must be targeted to those who need it most. That is the lesson learned from the energy crisis in 2022, when Russia cut us off the gas. It must be temporary, so with a clear end date, and above all, it must be coordinated across Europe for maximum impact. Now we will apply the same mindset when it comes to fuel reserves, especially jet fuel and diesel, where markets are tightening. And the second lesson learned is that our immediate action should lead to lasting effects. So this goes back indeed to the fact, how are we going to change our energy supply over time? For that, you must know that the overall energy supply, 3/3 of the energy supply is fossil fuels. Electricity represents 25% of the energy supply, 1/4 of our final energy consumption. These 25% is lower than it is the case, for example, in the United States or in China. So this must and this will change. And that is why we will accelerate the electrification of our union. By the summer, we will present the Electrification Action Plan with an ambitious target, because the overall message of the day yesterday discussions was we must move towards clean and homegrown energy. This is not only a matter of affordability, but also of economic security and independence. Turning to our competitiveness agenda, indeed, this morning, the three of us, the presidency of the Council, dear Nikos, the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, and me as President of the European Commission, we signed the One Europe, One Market roadmap. Finally, it's agreed. It's excellent because it's a joint political vision for the completion of the single market by the end of 2027. As you said, with very clear milestones and targeted, very transparent, everybody can follow up. So there is also our collective pressure on speed to move forward with the implementation and the legislative processes. We have 5 key drivers of prosperity in this roadmap. The first is the simplifying rules to make it easier for companies to thrive in Europe. The second is removing all barriers that hamper smooth cross-border business and investment. The third element is that we champion strong trade, and we already have a strong track record here in free trade agreements. The fourth topic is what I just talked about, reducing energy prices and decarbonizing, as we just discussed. And the fifth element is driving the digital and AI transformation. So in many ways, signing this roadmap was hard work to get there, but this is not the end, but it's the start of even better and more and hard work to deliver. Finally, on the next MFF. Indeed, we discussed it this morning. The next EU budget is central also to our competitiveness agenda, because it can de-risk investment and crowd in private capital. If you take InvestEU, InvestEU has or had 26 billion as guarantees. This triggered 300 billion of private investment. So this function of the EU budget is a very important one. By the budget, we can fund strategic priorities at real European scale, and it can support reforms that make Europe a better place to invest. All this is in the proposal of the next MFF, for the next MFF. But what we discussed today is that we must be very lucid about the budgetary equation, as we call it. First of all, from 2028 onwards, the European Union will start repaying Next Generation EU. That's one obligation. Then we need to invest more in our so-called new priorities. This is the European competitiveness, it is AI, it is quantum, defense, security, energy, you know the topics, the new priorities. The third point is of importance that we want to sustain funding for the European Union's long-standing priorities. This is the common agriculture policy and cohesion. And of course, we want to keep the national contributions in check. If we want all four elements to be respected, then there's only one solution. New own resources are indispensable. We need new own resources. And that was the discussion that we had today. I presented the different elements of the package of the new own resources. Without them, the choice is stark. It's either higher national contributions or it's lower spending capacity. That's the only options that are out there. In other words, lower spending capacities would mean less Europe exactly when more Europe is needed. So this is why the Commission proposed a comprehensive package of new own resources, a package that is diversified, linked to the Union policies, capable of generating stable revenues over time. We think this is the only credible way to match Europe's priorities and Europe's means. And indeed, to conclude, Nikos, we began a discussion, timely and necessary, on the mutual defence clause. The treaty is very clear about the what, and it's very strong that there is an obligation of for other member states to support the one who is in need. The treaty is not clear about what happens when and who does what. And this is the topic we are working on intensively today, together with not only today, we have discussed it today, but we are working on that topic together with the High Representative and the Commissioner for Defence. We have a very good example with the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, since 20 years in place. Their member states know exactly how to trigger. Everyone knows one's responsibilities and duties. A cascade is triggered, and it is working very effectively. There's a second element that we started to discuss, that is, what is the period before the mutual defence clause? So this period is the grey zone of hybrid attacks, of cyber attacks, of disinformation, of manipulation. And this is a very important period because this has to create the awareness with the member states that something is developing. And at best, it is a time where you can work to prevent an escalation to an armed conflict and to de-escalate. Also, this part of the equation we have been starting to discuss, but there's certainly a long way still to go to complete the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the floor for question, and I will start with you.
So let me ask in Greek, please. Κύριε Πρόεδρε, η Κύπρος πρόσφατα βίωσε τις συνέπειες της σύγκρουσης στη Μέση Ανατολή. Ωστόσο, είχε την